Hello, this is Roger Bisbee and Robin Clever with our second podcast, Skill Builder podcast, coming to you from, where are we, Robin?
Well, the pub was a bit noisy by all accounts, and so we thought, where can you go when it's really quiet? Well, an empty football stadium, of course.
Don't ask us why we are actually at the MK Dons football stadium, but we are, and we found a reasonably quiet corner to record this podcast. So let's see how it goes. Now, the first one we did was basically Robin was telling us how he price conditions people and how he gets the right money for the job, and that really struck a chord. People saying to us that, I wish you'd told me this 30 years ago. I could have used this information. So with this podcast, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about taking that plunge, becoming self-employed.
We are.
You've never been self-employed before.
Yeah.
It's taking away the safety net, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also, the way this one came about is obviously we looked at the comments and everything else, and really interesting to sort of see that there's a generic line that runs all the way through these comments, and that's about anxiety about becoming self-employed or being your own boss and so on and so forth.
Yeah, the other thing that I picked up on from the comments of the first podcast was that people were saying, look, I've been self-employed for 2 or 3 years and it's not really working out. I'm thinking I'm going to have to take a part-time job stacking shelves at Sainsbury's or some other supermarket or whatever they're doing. You know, somebody said they're going to go work evenings at Screwfix. If it's not working for you, then don't give up. But just think tomorrow is the first day of the rest of your life. In other words, the fact that you've had 2 years of hardship and so on doesn't contaminate the future. If you take on board maybe some of the things we're going to say, and then not start from scratch, but just push yourself forward from that point, rather than being tied down, weighed down by your failures.
Yeah.
Look at your successes, your potential.
Because the thing is, nowadays, what we call the gig economy and everything else, whether you like it or not, most industry wants to go towards people who are self-employed because it's easier for people to hire and fire. There's less liability involved because generally if you're self-employed, you've got to cover your own insurances and all that sort of stuff. So this is probably why this subject is going to get a lot of interest.
Yeah.
Now, tell us about you, Roger. Tell us how you became self-employed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, my thing is very slightly different to a lot of other people, in as much as I left school and started an apprenticeship, and then that didn't work out for me particularly well. I left that. I was a bit of a footloose, went travelling and did the hippie thing, really. It was all about the hippies in those days. So I did all that, sleeping on the beaches, dossing around, having a great time, and the sex and drugs and rock and roll scene. And then I came out. I thought I really want to do something, carry on back with what I did with the apprenticeship with plumbing and so on, because it gives me the opportunity to be independent, to do what I want and just go to work when I want to go to work rather than working for somebody else. So at that time, I'd actually got myself in a position where I'd got a mortgage, a couple of kids, and I was just sort of starting out in married life, and I thought, I missed the boat.
Really?
I wanted to be self-employed. I wanted to do something, and suddenly I'm working for somebody and I'm trapped in this like a golden noose.
Yeah.
And then everybody I spoke to, I said, look, I want to give this job up. It's reasonably paid. It was a very easy job to do. And I said, I want to give it up. With 2 kids and the mortgage, I want to throw all that away and I want to become self-employed. And almost every single person that I spoke to said, big risk, don't do it. You'll
So why did you do it?
Well, there was one person that encouraged me. One single person said to me, I think that's a great idea, go for it. And that person was my wife.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is, because she had the most to lose from it.
Yeah.
We've got the 2 kids and
But she could equally see your potential and the potential to go out there, name your price effectively, and do the work. Because you're a hard-working guy, Roger, so she could probably see that you do better on your own.
I've always loved work. I've never been really scared of work. But I think the thing that she thought is, if you stay here, if you stay in the safe lane, just carrying on, that's the potential is dead there, isn't it? Whereas if we throw all the cards up in the air and see where they land, at least we've got a chance we're going to do something else. And so, it's a bit like when people emigrated. I mean, loads and loads of people did it, didn't they? They just, set off for America. People left Ireland with nothing and just, because and obviously they didn't all make it. They weren't all success stories, but it gives you the chance to do it. So that's me anyway. So So it's hard. It is hard, at that beginning when you've got 300 quid in the bank and you're thinking, I've got a mortgage, I've got kids, you can go into meltdown on it, or you can start crying. But the great thing is, there's no plan B, is there? You just got to go for it.
You have to.
You can't sack yourself when you're self-employed, can you?
No.
So what about you anyway?
Well, well, it wasn't a similar story. I went to college, did my carpentry and joinery craft certificate, and I had a company who was kind of like my sponsor. So they were enabled through the CITB, the Construction Industry Training Board, they were able to get a little bit of a grant to train me up. I went to them saying, you don't have to pay me. I just need the experience. Just please be kind enough to take me on. And they did take me on. And I stayed with them, did my apprenticeship. They were really kind to me. They put me on the road with a van, all the rest of it. And I was kind of like an employee, but I wasn't really an employee. I was an apprentice. And then the company was quite young, a sole trader, effectively with me as his apprentice. And he was bringing other people in as he got busier and busier. And then when I got to about 18, 19, I finished my time. I pretty much went self-employed straight away because I wanted to do price work, because I knew that I could do lots of work in the time I was there for 40 hours a week or whatever. I just thought it's better for me to be on a price. And also he wanted me to be self-employed because it was a lot easier from a taxation and running a business point of view. So that's how I got into it. And so I've never really been employed. I've always been self-employed. And it's been tricky. There's been lots of pitfalls, lots of ups and downs. It's not been plain sailing. In fact, sometimes you just think to yourself, why am I doing this? Because, you might have had a bad couple of weeks and you've just not banked any money and you still got, like you said, your bills to pay, and it gets rolling up, and you just think, how am I going to get out of this? But you kind of just do it, You're under pressure. I personally work quite well under pressure. I don't know if anyone else out there.
Yeah, you do. You give yourself a lot of pressure. I know that. I know your wife says that around about lunchtime on a Sunday, she loses you to the dark side. And that's when his head is ticking, when his brain is ticking, and he started thinking about the week ahead and about planning and about putting all those things into place, getting the guys out on site and everything else. On the plus side, mate, I don't know, let's suppose you hadn't become self-employed, you carried on working for somebody, you would have 3 less houses than you've got today.
Well, I mean, I think...
seriously though, you've done okay.
I think the thing is, for me, for my personality, I don't think I'm a good employee. I wouldn't be a good employee.
Do you know what? I think exactly the same.
I was class clown in school. I was always wanting to have a laugh. I was more interested in doing something to go and earn a few quid. And that was basically what drove me. And I was from a big family, and there wasn't masses of money to go around. Mum and Dad were brilliant, but there wasn't masses of money to go around. My dad was a plumber too. And so, it was kind of, times were hard. And so my goal was to earn enough money to buy a car, get to work. Had no idea I'd ever own a house in my life. Certainly not go on long holidays. But it was all based around the flexibility of being self-employed, even though it was a bit sort of struggle, because I thought to myself, I'm self-employed, but I'm not a business. What's a business? I had no idea what a business was. Let's take, for example, if you're a carpenter, for example, and you want to do site work, there are companies that employ carpenters, but the majority of them are subcontract companies, and they build their workforce up from self-employed people. You might do a couple of months with them, go and do a couple of months with which is how you should operate as well, because any more than a couple of months with the same person, you could be classed as an employee.
Absolutely.
So you need to rotate and move it around. Don't keep all your eggs in one basket, of course, but that is basically how the industry works. I mean, when I'm managing a project for a client, for example, so I'll be managing that project and I will be introducing them to tradespeople, say a brickwork contractor. Now, I don't want that brickwork contractor coming through me. It's onerous. I can introduce them to my client. My client can deal with them directly. If it's just a one-man band, they're not even going to be charging VAT because they won't hit the threshold. So it works nicely for the client as well. And it doesn't mean I've got to interfere with their tax affairs. They're there as a subcontractor working directly for the client. So that's how a lot of the industry, people will agree with this. If you're in the small building arena, you don't employ your own plumber, you don't employ your own electrician. Everyone's self-employed.
Yeah, you're just mates and you all just phone each other up and get a hold of each other when and where you want each other. And you all let each other down. Let's just focus back down upon the fact that you've taken the plunge, you've become self-employed, you set up a business. What I'd say really, first of all, from my point of view, is define what your business is, because a lot of people, say, like plumbing, for example. You know, you can be fitting bathrooms, central heating systems, doing gas work, gas boiler. You could do, for even lead work, came under the umbrella of plumbing. And of course, if you do all that, you've got a massive van load of tools. You're going here, there, and everywhere. You never become an expert in anything, and people don't know what you do. So, for me, it was about just saying, right, which bits of this do I enjoy, and which bits do I really not, and which bits am I making money, which bits am I good at?
Yeah.
And
so
then,
what was it for you?
Then, well, oddly enough, this is really strange because it sounds rubbish, but I did all kinds of general plumbing, but then I kind of fell into a trench one day, if you like, and I ended up, well, funnily enough, the first job I ever did as an apprentice plumber was laying a lead water main in a trench for a church. And that's kind of where I went back, because I saw all these water mains, the water companies were doing them, were charging a fortune for doing them. Now,
replacements,
repairs, anything. And there was a lot of money in it, because it was underground, because it was a bit of a drama and so on. So I got into that. I got referrals from guys on the water companies, so that was quite nice. I was giving them a little drink. They were passing jobs on to me. So my phone was off the hook. It was ringing all the time, burst pipes. I even started doing them for the county council. I started doing them for farmers. Right. And I became known as the guy that would fix your underground burst. Yeah. And he would do it for half the price of the water companies, which were never hard. In fact, I did one a couple of weeks ago. They wanted £4,500 to do it. And quite honestly, it was a day's work. Yeah. It took me a day's work, 25 quid's worth of poly pipe.
Yeah.
And I thought,
a lead lock.
And they went, it wasn't even a lead lock. It was going straight on. Anyway, piece of cake, 2 connections and digging a trench. So for me, it was a combination of skills. It was about doing the groundwork and putting the pipes in. And I earned money hand over fist doing that, because nobody else was doing it. Yeah. And I couldn't understand why nobody wanted to do it either. I thought, this is great. Well, so what about you?
Well, I mean, as I said, it was a bit of an accident that I became self-employed, because there wasn't a job which was anything to write home about, and it was sort of 1989, 1990, and if you remember back that far, there was a bit of a recession, so the building trade fell off the cliff. And so talking about finding something that you were good at, I particularly liked at the time fitting locks. And I thought, well, it was a recession, so houses were getting broken into a lot. So I thought I could do a locksmith, so I could have just about afford a little advert in the the local Guardian newspaper, and it just said locksmith, 24-hour, and a phone number. That was it. That was my marketing. That was my whole effect. Yeah. But it just tied me over. I got the odd call, and for a while I thought I might go in that direction. But 3 or 4 calls a week used to be enough to just keep my rent going to my mum.
So quite low-value jobs.
Low-value jobs, but then again, I might be able to go back 2 weeks later and put a new front door on, once the insurance company had agreed it. Yeah. So it could lead to other things. So for me, that was that at that time. And then roof construction was the thing that I actually decided that I would focus on. And exactly the same as that little one-line advert at the time, way before the internet and your sort of marketing on the internet and everything else, I did a line saying top quality roof construction. And that was it. My phone number, I had a mobile phone from the age of about 19.
Big brick, was it?
Yeah, it was so a big Ericsson thing like this. And it worked out really well for me. I just get 1 or 2 calls a week from generally builders who saw it because they advertised alongside me. It was in the classified
so they were
section.
looking at their ad and they saw yours. Yeah.
And I'd get a phone call, and I still know quite a lot of those people now. And I used to only run that advert for as long as I needed to.
And I reckon the reason that was happening, and this is just me, I don't know, but this is just a guess at it. The reason you were getting that is because a lot of carpenters were coming out of college and all they knew how to do was truss roofs. They hadn't actually pitched or done a cut roof, as we say.
They hadn't, no. And thanks to going back to my apprenticeship, because it was a loft conversion company, and the guy, Brian, his name is, and really fabulous guy, entrepreneur. He sort of said to me, well, you're the apprentice. There's a dormer here with a pitch roof. You should know it. You go and get on with that. And so I was given the opportunity. It was literally textbook out. I was learning it at college, textbook out. And I think I spent 3 days building this little hip 10 dormer, which I could do in the morning now. But again, at the time, I didn't realise it at the time. I was anxious. Can I really do it? But that guy, I don't think he believed in me. He just wanted to get the job done. You know?
Yeah.
And he he just sort of let me get on with it. I
He
think he
threw
must
you
have
in
trusted
there,
me.
didn't he?
He trusted me.
He threw you in there at the deep end and said,
Yeah.
just get on with it. You
But-
do it, you can do it.
But it was kind of slow. So we'll talk about becoming self-employed. Sometimes it is a bit accidental. Sometimes it is a series of circumstances that puts you into a place or makes you meet someone. You might walk on a job to do 5 minutes work, bump into someone and go, are you busy tomorrow? I need someone to go to. And that's how it is. So you might not know where you're going to go next week, but you're always busy. How does that work? You know, I mean, so it is a little bit unpredictable, but I think that's part of the appeal of it, being self-employed.
Yeah, no, it is. It's an adventure all the time, isn't it? And funnily enough, my water main business, which was going really, really well, all the time the water companies were not privatised.
Yeah.
And I had all this work with the guys there. But once they privatised them, they took all that work in-house. And so it dried up, if you excuse the pun, dried up overnight, disappeared.
So your experience then of being self-employed was the fact that you kept your eggs in one basket, effectively.
No. What it was is that I found something right. So I did, because I went back and did my training, I say the apprenticeship wasn't good, but when I went back and did my training, I did everything, gas work a lot. So I could do all that stuff. It was just that I didn't like grubbing around under floorboards when I could be out there in the sunshine or even in the rain, just doing a simple job like that. But that's what I enjoyed doing. That's what I made money at. But once that went away, if you like, the rug got pulled from under. It was just a question of saying, right, so what else is there out there that I can do, that I like doing, and then just moving into those other things. So for a while it is about doing central heating systems, but I hate the idea of competing with everybody on the same ground. That's the thing that really used to get to me, is that you were just going in there, putting a price in, and there were 5 other people putting a price in, and you were only ever going to get it if you were the cheapest. So that's, again, another story, and we touched on that the other week. But for me, that was I think you've got to be adaptable. You've got to realise that if you start out in business, what you're doing now, I mean, a classic example of that, my dad always said to me, go into the print,
Yeah, my dad did.
Because they knew that they were the richest, the best paid workers in the country. But all that went, didn't it?
So
Murdoch and all the rest of it, and the computer.
When we chatted earlier, when you kindly drove me here, you were talking about making small steps. And I think that's a really
stepping
important...
stones, yeah. So you want to cross a river, yeah? And rather than looking at the river and going, right, if I take a real good run up at it and I'm going to jump that river, and you're not, basically, unless you're blooming, I don't know, Olympic, you're not going to do it anyway. So realistically, you've got to take stepping stones. You've got to find the stages that are going to get you across that river. And they're the objectives. They're the things that you can take month by month or year by year, whatever you do. So right, so where I want to get to is the other side of that river. That's what I want to be doing in 5 years' time or 10 years' time or whatever. How am I going to get there? I'm going to get there by establishing small stages that I can make, things I can tick off and say, right, I've done that. So if you're employed and you want to become self-employed, then first of all, you've got to work out what you're going to be self-employed at, but it's obvious that, but you've got to make those little stages, right? So what do I want to do now? Do I need capital? Do I need to get a business plan? And all those things, Incidentally, just as an aside, when you became self-employed, you then at some point needed a mortgage.
Yeah.
How did that go for you?
It was really difficult, and that was the first mortgage I took out was roughly 1992. I was about 22. That was just after the recession, so the house prices were low, but my earnings were equally low as well. And the banks were very strict at the time, obviously coming out the back of a recession. The banks were strict, but fortunately, because and this is a bit of a tip, I don't know whether it's loyalty that counts now, but it was then. So my mum and dad never had much money. They were just, very humble people. But they banked with a branch of a major high street bank.
Well, you could say which
it
one.
was NatWest.
NatWest.
And
Give them a big up.
I got introduced to them because I had a piggy bank and I opened a little account. My YTS money, my youth training scheme money went into the account, had to have an account for that. Yeah. Then when I started doing my own work and I started putting a bit of money in, and then the conversation about you must have a business account, I took the business account out. Then I needed a loan for a van, and I went to get a loan for a van, and he said to me, Mr. Buchanan, his name was, and he'd been at the branch in the village literally all his life. He said to me, how much do you want to borrow? And I said, well, I need a van. It's 3,000, the one I was in. He said, well, you only pay money in here sometimes here. He says, come and see me in 6 months' time, and I want to see that you've paid a little bit in every single week. So that's what he did for me. So I went off and I was all disappointed. Oh, I need that van, all the rest of it. I still got tools in the back of my old car. And I knew if I had the van, I'd be able to do more, get materials. Yeah. But I couldn't borrow any money. Mum and Dad certainly couldn't afford to help me. So I had to go back in 6 months' time. So that was a lesson. I've done it, and he went, here's this rubber stamp, here's 3,500.
Oh, really?
Right?
Okay, so he was good to his word then, wasn't
But it taught me the lesson.
Good old Mr. Buchanan.
I trusted him, and he trusted me. And then, so fortunately, by the time I was 22 and I was working 7 days a week, I was passionate about, what I was doing and everything else. And that only grew from people being complimentary about the fact that I was okay at what I did. I suppose the passion came from the kindness of people.
Succeeding.
It was, I loved my craft. I really loved what I did. I loved what I did at college. I loved timber work. I loved carpentry and joinery. Self-employment was just a mistake of all that. But the passion was growing. Every time someone really liked what I did, I felt inspired to do a bit more. And it that helped the self-employment.
That's quite funny, isn't it?
It was the self...
That's really almost like an aphrodisiac, isn't it? That phrase. But,
it is.
But it's funny enough. It's why we're back here doing a second podcast, because people said the first one was good. That's what really. It's the same process, isn't it? People tell you you're good, it encourages you.
I didn't answer the question about the mortgage, but it was exactly the same sort of situation. I was
tough.
able to. He had my records. He saw that I was regularly paying in. He also spoke to my bookkeeper, my accountant at the time. They did between them a calculation, and it was kind of like the most they'd give you was 3.5 times earnings.
That's it. Yeah.
And my wife, then girlfriend, she was just out of college, so she had started her own. She was self-employed, straight self-employed as well. We've both only been self-employed, so she was setting out, so she couldn't really be involved in the calculation. So but what it did do, it focused us on finding a property we could afford, and then negotiating the price down as much as we could negotiate down till it was under stamp duty and all the rest of it. So that was just, looking back, it was a big commitment, but actually it was, in terms of timing, I was very lucky, and I owe my success to that unfortunate...
That first one. Yeah. No, I know, because you've got a few houses now. I've got to say that. Sorry to say that. But
I really don't think that helps anybody or anything. I think that should be cut.
All right. Okay.
Be a role model.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of it. I just like the idea of saying, well, so you've got a few houses now, Robin, so obviously that first one was...
Lego houses.
No. Anyway, but that was good. All right, so
I would say that I would never advise anybody to become self-employed.
Why?
If you're sitting there and you can't make up your mind and you're thinking, oh, that bloke said because nobody advised me. They all advised me against it, and I did it anyway, And I think if you're the kind of person who needs advice to become self-employed, in other words, you need somebody like us who, let's face it, don't even know us, telling you, go on, get out there, burn your bridges, become self-employed. Maybe if that's what you need, then it's not for you. But if if you're a risk taker, you've got to be a risk taker. You've got to be one of those people that just says, right, I don't care, I'm going to do it, because I don't have a plan B. Don't take away the safety net. And if you're that kind of person that will take away the safety net and fly, and you look at it, because I read a lot of autobiographies, and you see all these people have got one thing in common. They've all gone to hell with it. Let's throw it all up in the air, and it's that. Not exactly a gamble, but just going.
But equally, though, Roger, if you do find yourself in a position and you've got an opportunity to go and do some work, and someone's said, "Oh yeah, you've got a lovely job over here for you. It's 3 months' work," and you say, "Okay, what are the terms?" They say, "Well, you've got to be self-employed." That's unfortunately in our industry, in the construction industry, that's the way you tend to get pushed.
So just summing up, I'd say define what you want to do.
Yeah.
Make sure you do want to do it, that you enjoy it, because and work 7 days a week. I think you must work 7 days a week. Don't give yourself that luxury of saying, "Oh, I'm going to have a day off," because when you're starting out, I never ever turned a job down when I started out. It didn't matter what time, it's Sunday lunchtime or whatever. In fact, I remember once saying to the woman, "I'm not coming tomorrow because it's my son's birthday. I've been working 7 days a week. I want to have the day off. It's his birthday." And she said, "Oh, I want my job done." And I said, "Well, you'll have to go elsewhere." And in the end, she came back to me, and then when I came round, she said, "Well done, you, for sticking to your principles."
How nice is that?
My goodness.
How
she
nice
pressured me like mad, but in the end,
So let's say thanks to everybody that has commented on our first podcast, and hopefully on our second podcast we get more comments, hopefully good ones as well, suggestions of what you want us to talk about, what you want us to cover. We will tighten this up, and if you don't want to look at our ugly mugs, don't forget you can also see this, or hear this, as a podcast on Spotify, on iTunes, on, who are the other ones?
We've got Google Podcasts. We're getting,
and of course, the Skill Builder website.
And of course, the Skill Builder website.
Oh yeah, don't forget the Skill Builder website. It's still going strong, and hopefully we'll be back with another podcast. So listen out for us. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not match day, is it?
No, I mean I could get out on the pitch, but I'm about as useless at playing football as I am at making cakes.
Oh really?
Yeah,
pretty good then.
Can you guys tell me what league the MK Dons are in?
I couldn't tell you what league they're in.
A league of their own.
I'd imagine they're in the one down from Premiership.